heroes helped to defend their home village of New Zealand from attack by dire wolves. Unfortunately, a number of defenders were lost during their valiant defence. Afterwards, they investigated and discovered that the wolves appeared to have been driven out of the aptly named Wolf Forest by a wyvern that had settled in the area. The heroes faced the wyvern and were given a bit of a kicking by it, basically. Luckily, Weimar, with his black powder weapon, was able to scare off the creature. It flew up into the air and was circling around, sort of trying to work out what was going on so it could then come back down. Wisely, they decided to grab some stuff from this ruined abbey where it was lairing and get while the going was good, and they hot-footed it back to New Zealand, where they've spent a short while resting up and recuperating, during which time, as arranged with Mercy Dixon, the castellan of the recently built Staffstone Tower, 10 soldiers from there were brought as a sort of semi-permanent garrison to New Zealand to help defend it. And that is pretty much where we're going to pick up with you guys in New Zealand. You're all refreshed, you've all sort of had time to heal yourself up. Like I say, a couple of days have passed, so it's pretty much over to you guys.
So is there anything we need to arrange or deal with before setting off for the pirate cave?
I suppose if we have enough supplies, we should be good to go.
You all good for food?
Obviously, you know it's going to take you about like 2 days to reach the pirate cave.
Also, Malcolm, I think you were muted on your actual mic.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, there we go. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, we have plenty of food and we still have our ponies and our cart, so I think we're good, really.
Yep. And we can stop at Deersun to, pick up something if we need to.
Yep.
Do a bit of trading.
Sure.
Okay. I suppose. Quickly check here. John, I don't suppose that the trade around New Zealand would have improved to the point where we have access to more smiths, I suppose. What I'm looking at here is maybe some more fancy armor bits. But I have chainmail currently going, and it's probably going to be the fortresses, isn't it? If we want.
Yeah, if you want to get more
stuff.
sort of fancy stuff, you'd be looking at the forts, yeah, at the moment. I mean, hopefully when your trader friends sort of fully set up, and like you get more into the more sort of clement weather, the trade will start increasing from Rohaleen. But certainly at the minute, it's not at the level where you could, start buying like plate mail and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know if you want the heavy metal sort of armor in the strong winter either.
No, but it's just something more, like additional anything that we might have, like bigger shields. I don't know, like whatever it is. No, I guess we're good to go.
Okay. So you guys start travelling towards the pirate cave. You're moving fairly quickly, despite the fact that there's snow falling through the air, and obviously the weather is fairly cold at the minute, but you're sticking to the coast. You're pretty familiar with this stretch of coast now. You've travelled here a number of times on your way to Deersun and back to New Zealand, so you pretty much know the lay of the land now, so travel's pretty quick. As you're moving along, however, Quentin, as you're sort of travelling just past the outskirts of the Whale Song Woods, you can sort of see there, you briefly, a couple of times as you're travelling, you think you catch sight of like branches sort of like moving within the edge of the woods, but every time you sort of like look round, there's like no one there.
Okay.
no one else seems to have really picked up on it, but obviously you're used to sort of like being on your guard, effectively, given your sort of training.
Who's closest to me out of the party?
Roll me a d4.
One.
Okay, so the closest person to you is Brock at this present time.
Okay, I'll slow down so I can get or speed up so I can get next to Brock. I'm just going to whisper to him. I think there's something in the woodland. I'm going to move off and check. You just carry on as normal.
Okay. Do we want to have some sort of call sign or something in case you encounter some sort of problem? You don't want to give away your position. Some sort of sound or.
We'll stick to a bird whistle, shall we?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll try and act as natural as possible. And continue on ahead. I will catch up with the others and just inform them of what's happening, just so the whole group's in on it.
Yeah, absolutely no problem. Now, I assume you guys have taken Wolf's Eye with you on this trip, so that means there's 5 of you in all.
Yep.
So, yeah, you've caught up Brock. You sort of like, as nonchalantly as you can, being like a sort of man-mountain barbarian. You know, you sort of like run as you're like catching up with the others, and then as you get level with them, you sort of lower your voice a bit, and you tell them like, Quentin's like seen something in the trees. He's gonna have a quick look, and he's gonna give us like a bird whistle if like he needs help. So the rest of you are all aware of that now. So, Quentin, you've seen Brock sort of head up ahead to like let the others know, and you've worked out this signal between yourselves. What's your plan?
My plan is to move slowly towards the tree line.
Okay.
As the party's getting ahead of me. And then once I'm in the tree line, I can go full stealth and try and find out what's going on.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Do you want to make me a move silently roll?
Yep.
Okay, so you slowly sort of fall back a little bit, very slowly, so as not to like cause alarm to anyone who might be watching, and then you slowly sort of drift sideways into these narrow, dark-furred conifers that make up the edge of the Whale Song Woods, and you start sort of like moving parallel to the rest of your companions, but like a distance behind. And after probably an hour, as you're moving, you catch sight through the trees. Obviously you're moving very carefully so not to tread on any branches or anything like that, through the firs up ahead of you, that you're sort of like, you're moving very gently so as not to like disturb the snow or anything like that. You catch sight of what appears to be a hooded figure, sort of crouched low to the ground, seemingly doing a similar thing to you, like trying to move stealthily, that also seems to be like moving in parallel to the rest of your group.
I'll keep moving silently to get behind him.
Yeah, that's not a problem. You don't have to make another roll for that. You've passed your move silently roll. So yeah, he's entirely unaware of your presence at the moment. As he moves, after again maybe another hour of him sort of following your group, you following him, you see him sort of, he starts very slowly and very deftly, he's obviously got some skills, starts like climbing one of these conifers, and as he does, his cloak falls back a little bit, and you can see that like clipped on his belt, he's got a crossbow hanging down by one of his legs, and you see him like scaling up this conifer.
I'll shout up to him at this point. I should give him a decent scare whilst he's climbing.
Okay, what do you shout?
I'm just going to shout, "Oi, oi."
Nice. Okay, yeah, so you shout, oi, oi. At which point, him having not noticed you at all and thought he was sort of like stealthing his way through the undergrowth, he sort of turns around, reaching for his crossbow to point it at you, but he turns too sharply, loses his footing, falls out this conifer tree, and there's like a soft as he lands in this snow, and you see him start to sort of like pick himself up out of the snow. It's like crossbow's landed like a few feet away.
I'll grab the crossbow and point it at him.
No problem. You walk across, you point the crossbow at him. He sort of like just like lifted himself to his knees, basically like lifting his upper torso out of the snow.
Stay there.
He stops moving. You can see he's got like a cloth covering over his lower half of his face, and a sort of dingy brown, almost like Hessian travelling cloak with a hood pulled up.
Okay, I'll give out the bird call. So it's caw caw.
Okay, yeah. So you guys up ahead, you hear this bird call from Quentin.
Yeah, I just turn and full pelt towards it.
Okay, yeah. You all join Quentin, sort of homing in on his location. Takes maybe 10 minutes. Obviously the signal's loud on purpose so you could locate him. You arrive just on the outskirts of the Whale Song Woods, like I said, this area of thin, dark conifers. A fairly thick coating of snow is on the floor, and you can see Quentin stood there with this crossbow pointed down, and there's this guy who sort of like half lifted himself out of the snow. There's an obvious impression where he's like landed in it, and he's sort of like, he's like that, basically like on his knees, sort of like with his hands held up, like I say, wearing this like Hessian cloak, general sort of like travelling gear, cloth covering over the bottom of his face.
Who feels like negotiating with this fella?
I think you should give him a good scare, Brock.
I'm happy to do it if no one else wants to step up. Yeah, I'll, have you learned anything from him yet? I know.
Not yet.
I'll look at Quentin. Okay.
I was just going to stick a bolt in his head. But...
Well, let's give him a chance first, shall we? I know I'll talk openly so he can hear us talking.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like it's hidden or anything. So, what are you doing? Why are you following us?
He says, slightly muffled from under the cloth cover, and he says, look, it's nothing personal, but I'm not going to turn down like 2,000 gold pieces, am I?
Well, depends what it's for, and I'll rip that thing off his face because that'll annoy me.
You pull it off his face. You see he's got a sort of close cropped, shaved head, a number of like small scars on his face, a little bit of stubble. As you sort of pull it off as well, you also see it appears to have like a sort of a black flower of some kind, like tattooed on one side of his neck.
Have we seen that before with them pirate types?
Not with the pirate types.
Yeah.
I will say any of you who are from Rohaleen, which is I think everyone but Brock, you can make me a d6 roll to see if this rings any bells. Let me know if you get a 5 or a 6.
Got a 5.
Okay.
6.
Okay, so Johannes, you vaguely recall sort of during Weimar's army days, you recall hearing something about an organisation called the Brotherhood of the Black Rose, some sort of like secret society or something like that, but obviously they're a secret society, so you don't really know much about them.
Yeah, turns out.
Yeah. Now, Quentin, you are also aware of that. However, perhaps due to your more larcenous leanings, you also know that they're effectively an assassin's guild, effectively.
Oh, that's all I need to know. Then I'll pull the trigger.
Yeah, no problem. As you sort of, Brock, as you're sort of like pulling it back and this rose tattoo is revealed, I think probably Weimar and Quentin sort of share a bit of a look as they both recognise it. And without further word, Quentin's like, puts a bolt straight between the guy's eyes and he just pitches forward with a soft crump into the snow.
At that, I should turn around and we could have got some more information out of him.
It's an assassin. He's not going to tell you anything.
I thought that was what it was, but I never got the full. We should, yeah.
They all fear death.
You should take his kit, throw his body to the wolves, and carry on.
I'll set about, patting him down, do the whole.
See if he's
thing.
got any notes or information on where he's meant to meet up or any sort of.
You don't find any notes on him. Obviously, he's like a professional, so he doesn't keep like incriminating evidence on himself.
Kill these guys and return to me at address.
Yeah.
You basically find probably 20 gold pieces on him, like a bit of spending money, and obviously the crossbow, which you can take if you wish.
Yeah, take that, mate.
Let's see. Have you already got a crossbow in your character sheet, Quentin? Or... Because if not, I'll stick you one on.
If he's an assassin, has he got any
No, I haven't.
specialist tools? Has he got like any poison or anything like that we can find on him?
Not as far as you can see by inspecting
Like
him,
his crossbow bolts. They don't seem to be like dipped in anything. Or...
No, they're not dipped in any venoms that you can sort of
No.
establish.
Because he's pretty hopeful to take on us 5.
Right, there you go. There's a crossbow on your character sheet, Quentin.
Unless he's not working on his own.
If he went on his own, they'd already be here.
And at this point, since obviously we have both Weimar and Quentin have heard of this like Black Rose Brotherhood, I'm going to ask Weimar, what's a sort of general rumour that you heard about this organisation during your time in the armed forces?
Yeah, because it's the army, so it would be rather different than if I heard about it when I was in the city, doing whatever I was doing then, guild business. I guess it's. I suppose the army then would have, we would have had a whole conspiracy theory where, we know that there were these guys with the Black Rose, and we knew that they were shady, and we figured they're probably hired by the the merchant princes back home to hang around with us, come forward with the army, but then they leave the army or use us as a sort of supply base. But their whole point is to infiltrate the enemy and try to kill their assassinate the sort of officers of the enemy by getting to the war zone with us and then just leaving and just joining up with the enemy and being hello, I too am an enemy of these guys. Let me at your sergeant. Oh, there he goes.
Yeah, that is absolutely fine. So that is a sort of rumour you heard during your days in the army. Now I'm going to ask Quentin, what is a rumour that you have heard about this brotherhood? It can be a little bit more specific in your case. Obviously, you were aware they were assassins.
Yeah, so a rumour I've heard is that they take young thieves because they've already learnt the majority of the sneaking skill. So then they can train them in weapon use. And generally they act more like a guild than a organisation.
Okay, lovely. So that's what you guys know about this sort of Black Rose Brotherhood. And now this guy's lying dead, sort of a dark blot against the otherwise pristine white snow. You can now all clearly see this sort of this black rose tattoo, so an almost like a Tudor rose that's been sort of tattooed onto his neck.
Should we leave a message for his compatriots?
Sounds like he's on his own.
Sorry, but there are others. This is not a surprise to us that there are
there's lots of them. We're going to encounter more of them until we deal with this problem.
And we might scare some of them potentially by, I don't know.
If they ever find him, yeah.
Yeah, if we were to, set his body on fire, tied to a tree, and potentially remove his tattoo and leave it nailed to the tree nearby, you might send a pretty gruesome message that we're not to be
we
messed
could
with.
blood eagle him.
Yeah.
I like the fact Malcolm suggests like some sort of minor like mutilation is like might be a bit too much, and then Quentin's like, well, if we're gonna do it, like crank that knob.
Let's
up a
go
bit.
full psycho.
That's it. If we're gonna mutilate someone, let's crank it up to 11.
I'll have a sly look. Has Quentin got any of these tattoos on his neck himself? He seems to know a bit about this and
It turns out Quentin doesn't have hair. It's just the tattoo.
former member.
You look round, you realise there is no Quentin. It's just all a tattoo. But
The
no,
Ink Man.
from what you can see, Quentin. I mean, obviously you're not like sort of strip searching him, but from what you can see, Quentin doesn't have any like rose tattoos on himself.
No, he's fairly new to the group though. That's all. So do they all have these tattoos then? I guess so. If we encounter people in the future,
You don't know, to be perfectly honest. I mean, what you know is encapsulated by the two rumours that Weimar and Quentin know, and the fact this guy was like, "Oh, I'm not going to turn down like 2,000 gold pieces," and from this tattoo, you guys have sort of like intuited that he's perhaps a member of this organisation that both Weimar and Quentin have heard of, but obviously you don't know that for definite.
no.
And you don't know any further details. I mean, you suspect that like they've probably not all got tattoos, because like you'd be a bit of a shit secret order of assassins if you like effectively all wore like a name badge.
Yeah, but you could
Ask
have
me
them in
about
different
the Black
places.
Order.
I suppose.
You know what I mean?
And we think he'd have come from overseas.
Well, from what for the fact that Weimar and Quentin know about it, you might intuit that it's an organisation based in Rohaleen, but obviously lots of people from Rohaleen have come over to Valkonen. I mean, it's not a native Valkonen organisation, so otherwise you'd be aware of it, Brock.
Yeah. Okay. So
And to be honest, assassins guilds aren't like a big thing amongst the native like Valkonen people, like the Ice Walkers and whatever. They're too busy like surviving to like make guilds to like kill other people.
it's just like I discussed with the others. Do you think they've come over together in a boat?
It's
And
probably
then spread out, sort of searching.
Yeah, and if they are set up anywhere here, they're going to be in a fort, right? Like it's this type of thing doesn't thrive in the woods. Like you need people for this.
You wouldn't have thought. You don't think they'd have gone to Deersun, do you?
Well, Deersun is very close to the fort and allied with the fort, so it's kind of equal to the fort right now, I think. So,
Well, just wondering if, even if we don't need to, should we go and like, ask around if there's been some new people in town, sort of thing.
at the fort, you mean, or Deersun?
Or Deersun on the way
Yeah.
past.
Yeah, sure. It's on the way anyway, so we could ask.
But saying that, they're going to anticipate you going there.
Yeah, if we keep in, well, relatively sort of open areas, and I think,
They'll still try something in an open area. They'll try it in a crowded room. The best bet is just to carry on where we're going
Yeah, I suppose we could.
and
When we
avoid a
make
mass
our way
populace.
back, we could go to the fort and try and learn something.
Let's
problem
stick to our plan and remember that it's the person who hired them that is the problem we need to solve.
yeah, but we don't know who that is yet. We can't cut off the head until you know who it
No,
is.
it's the pirate.
You definitely think it's the
bosses.
pirate captain.
Yeah, it's the pirate bosses, but getting them is the big problem here. Lacking a boat of our own or a
Or a
ship.
decent boat. Yeah.
Yeah, we could make it out to the water, but
Yeah. I
the
don't like your
best bet
chances.
is to try and ambush whoever's coming to land, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys rightly say, sort of like knocking up a sort of boat to like move around the coast or on the rivers or whatever, that is not a problem. You can do that very easily. But like you say, big sort of sailing ships and bigger vessels, that's a considerably more involved sort of building project.
Yep. All right, let's push on then.
Yeah. So I propose that we take whatever we can use and just leave this fellow face down in the mud.
Yeah, and make sure we stick together and don't
If
separate.
you
you
do
don't
want to
wanna
make a
bloody-
point, you could slice off his thumbs. Message enough for anyone who knows about thieving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose onwards to the slave cave, slaver cave.
Okay, no problem. So you guys camp for the evening. Obviously, like, a day's passed, so it's gonna take another day to get to the cave. So it'll be like 2 rations for each of you. But the evening passes uneventfully. You take watches. It's still snowing the next morning when you wake up. So obviously you've had to do your normal sort of thing, knocking snow off your tents or whatever you're sleeping under, your shelters, stuff like that. But that's not a problem. And the next day you arrive in the area where previously you found the cave of the pirate slavers. And having been here before, you're easily able to locate because it's not really concealed anymore, although there's a bit of snow over it. You're able to locate the sort of hole that drops down into the cave in like the little clearing. There's the little rope ladder still going down. You don't see any signs of like pirates guarding the hole down into the cave.
Any signs of any foot traffic at all?
Difficult to
What do you
tell
see?
because of the recent snowfall, but you don't notice any tracks.
Did we see any smoke coming up from around these parts?
You've not seen any smoke rising, no.
And I take it we've also been looking out into the sea for any sort of boat activities and that as we've been walking along as well.
Yes, you have. Obviously, you're aware of pirates, so you've been keeping a weather eye to the coast. But you've not seen any signs of like huge galleons like rounding the coast or anything like that.
Yeah.
Right, so I can take a look. I know the place anyway. So I'll head down.
Okay, you head down. The rope ladder's still there. It's a little bit slow going because obviously it's very slippy because of the recent rains and now the snow, etc. But you take your time. You're not under any particular stress. You head down there. You head back into the cave. It's much as you remembered it. There's still the lanterns sort of on these poles throughout the cave, although they've long since burnt out. Obviously, presumably you've got a torch with you. As you head in there, you don't see any signs of a recent habitation. However, as you enter the main cave holding your torch up in front of you, you can see what appeared to be a number of like large furred rodents sort of scampering around in the cave, like sort of about yay long each of them. And as you sort of hold up your torch, sort of driving them back a bit with your torch, at the far end of the cave, towards the end where the inlet is that leads to the sea, you can see there are what appears to be 3, you think at this distance, you think they're bodies lying on the ground, and in fact you can see like a rat's like one of these like large rats is like basically chowing down on one of them.
Right, so I'll try and drive the rats to the water to check the bodies.
Okay, let me just make a quick roll to see how that goes.
And I will have, shouted up, there's no one here save for rats. Big ones.
Okay, you don't manage to drive them exactly to the water, but they do seem to want to keep away from your torch. And you gingerly make your way across the larger cave towards where these 3 bodies are. They're fairly recent, although they've all been pretty much eaten almost down to the bone. There's like scraps of cloth and flesh still clinging to them, but they've been pretty thoroughly chewed on. Although from the sort of still ever so slightly tacky like blood that's around them, they must have come here like relatively recently. Like they're not sort of like old, like decrepit, dusty like bones. they're simply bones because the flesh has been gnawed off by these giant rats. And as you sort of like you're moving through these bodies, your torch out eye flickering in the darkness of this cave, you hold up, you can see the tunnel that leads to the inlet, and you can hear the waves. And as you sort of hold it up, you can just about make out what looks to be the remnants of a small wooden boat on the shore. Although the boat appears to have, like, from this distance, the boat appears to have like some damage to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also see signs that there were like other boats recently that were sort of like pulled up on this like sandy sort of beach area, but they're no longer there. You can just see like the furrows sort of like in the sand and the shingle. So it looks like a few boats recently arrived here, and like a couple of them have presumably left, and like this damaged one's been left here.
Okay, how far is it to the damaged one? And can I make it there? I guess, is there a...
Oh yeah, you can make it. It's pretty much in the same place where the previous boat was that the pirates were trying to get the captives into. Yeah, you make your way across to the boat. You find there's like a few bits and pieces in it, like rope and stuff like that. None of which is in particularly good condition. It looks, as you're sort of, I mean, you're not really a mariner, but as you're looking at it, it basically looks that like when they landed on, let's say it's a sort of shingle, like sort of stone-like beachy area. When they sort of landed it looks like one of the larger, sort of more jagged stones has basically like scraped a hole through the bottom of the boat, and presumably that's why it was abandoned. But you can definitely see signs that like there were another couple of boats here recently, but they're no longer here.
Right, and there's no any sort of markings of like what business was going on here. Yeah.
Not that you can see, no.
Yeah. All right. I suppose I'll shuffle on back.
Yeah, no problem. You head back to the rope ladder. You carefully climb up this slippery rope ladder to rejoin your companions at the top of this entrance to the pirate cave.
There's someone's been down there. Don't know who or on what business though. There's a couple bodies, rats.
No signs of these tattoos or these assassin
No.
guys.
Any chance the boat was salvageable?
With a bit of work. I'm not sure that we have the tools here, but yeah, you could patch it up. I've seen. I'm not really a sailor as such, but I did grow up on the coast, so I could make it work on my own for a bit, but you'd want like an actual carpenter to look at it. But yeah, it is savaged by rocks, but you can fix that.
Is it a sailboat or is it like a rowing boat?
No, John, it's one of the rowboats.
Yeah,
right?
it's a rower. It's a wooden rowing boat. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not.
It's the ones that they use to come on land.
Yeah. From the okay.
And I just wish there would have been some indication of who these people were, so that we could.
Yeah, strange that they would leave 3 bodies behind.
Yeah.
Was there any injuries on the bodies, or are they anything that could be seen?
The rats got to them. There's
Okay.
not a lot of it's bodies in the sense that there's bones left.
Okay.
It seems weird to make a point with dropping off random bodies with no message to go with.
Yes.
So
Well, we just left a bloke with his thumbs cut off in the forest, so could be a message.
yeah, it could be a message, but again, don't really know what it's saying other than all the things we already knew about these people who sell others into chattel slavery.
So I wonder. It feels like the pirates have abandoned this place, does it? There'd be no value to waiting here for a number of days to see if they return.
I don't think there would be. John, we left the bodies where we sort of. I suppose we might have, put them in a pile,
Yeah.
and they're not there. or
They would still be there. You do not. I will say that you would notice that they've been sort of like moved slightly.
yeah.
But they've not been taken away. Now,
Yeah.
whether that's someone came in and moved them, whether it's just the rats getting in amongst them, you don't know.
Yeah. Right. So I suppose it's safe to assume that it's going to be the pirates, probably the same crew. And if they're trying to make a point bringing on some of the people that they took and killing them here to spite us, I mean, it doesn't really change anything.
No.
Could be a message to other slaves, though. This is how
it
you
could-
end up.
that is true. That is true. I suppose.
Who did they take? Was it from Deersun? or-
Ice walkers from around.
Oh, that's
the-
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the tribe, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think there's a lot to do here. I don't know that they would come back.
But were
At
they
least-
ice walkers, the bodies?
Couldn't really tell. 'Cause-
Oh, you'd be able to tell.
Like you say, it's very difficult to tell 100% because of the state they were in. Why
Oh,
not?
they were that bad. Okay.
Yeah, they'd been like pretty much thoroughly devoured by rats. However, if you had to make a guess, Wymar, and admittedly it's only a guess, you would say that, like, given that most of the ice walkers you've seen, they're like big hulking like barbarians like Brock is, whereas the sort of overall build of these people was more similar to like yourself and Quentin. So you'd assume probably not, but it is an assumption.
Yeah, and it could be any number of reasons why as well.
Yeah. Well, like you said, there's no more we can do.
Yeah,
We'll learn from it, then
yeah,
we
and
might as
like,
well push on.
staying here, waiting in ambush, that is a thing. But I don't know that we can rely on them coming back anytime soon. Especially with the knowledge that they know that we know about this place. So, so I suppose we move on.
Yeah.
Maybe check this place as we patrol the coast back and forth to make regular appearances here, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's worth checking on.
Okay, so you guys are pushing on to Deersun, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, no problems. That'll take another day. Again, you camp for the evening, you post watches. The evening pass is fairly uneventful. Obviously, a couple of days have passed, so anyone... I know you're all on full, but you would have had the opportunity to regain hit points from rest if you'd have needed to. So, I'm hoping that this Deersun map doesn't require tokens, so I'm going to move you on to the Deersun map just so we can get a bit of a change of scenery. Okay, let's activate that.
It seems like I'm loading, so I'll be right back while
Yeah, no
it's doing
problems.
that.
So wasn't Quentin like worried about going into Deersun? Or
Any populace, basically.
yeah. So are we just
Or
gonna be
highly
on our...
recognisable people
Yeah.
when you've got a contract on your head.
Yeah, and as Quentin rightly says, you guys aren't exactly like inconspicuous.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start giving you a bit of a description of Deersun while waiting for the map to load up for everyone. As previously, it's a small village consisting of approximately 6 or 7 buildings. a little bit on a smaller scale than New Zealand, although thanks to your previous interventions, they do now have like a wooden palisade around it, and there's just like a central, I don't want to use the word road because it's not that good, it's almost like a dirt path that sort of runs through the centre of it. You can see a few people sort of milling around in the village, and just doing their everyday thing, although there's not as many people out and about because of the snow falling, presumably. One thing you do notice that you would not have seen on your previous expeditions here is that there appear to be 10 sort of reasonably well equipped like guards, 5 guards sort of stationed around. They're wearing the familiar purple and black livery of the nearby Fort Eastburn, and they're sort of stood around in their armour, the livery, their spears, etc., sort of stationed mostly around the 2 entrances to this wooden palisade. As you're approaching towards the village, one of the guards steps forward, not in a threatening way, but just like in an official way. He just sort of steps forward, he's got one hand on his spear, he just holds up a hand, and he's like, "Who goes there?"
I mean, he doesn't seem to recognise us at all.
He doesn't seem to, no.
Travellers.
He just sort of waves you through, and he's like, "Oh, fine, apologies, we've been told to expect an attack from buccaneers, so we're on high alert at the moment." And you see, so he's obviously like looking you over as he's talking to you, and he's like, that's fine though, carry on through, although you'll find precious few people out and about with the weather as it is at the minute. And he sort of jerks a thumb up in the direction of the sky. So I think most people are taking shelter in the buildings.
What's the name of the retired adventurer that lives here?
The name of the retired adventurer who lives here, if my notes will come up, is, I believe, Ariana. It is indeed. Although she actually lives like a short distance outside of the village. She like doesn't live in the village proper. She's got like her own like little sort of home just on the outskirts. You know where it is, so if you wanted to go and visit her, you could easily do that. Obviously, she knows who you are because she spoke to you previously. You know that she helped Atrix, the female artist, who was accused of being a witch by the Tozen Inquisitor. She helped her escape from Deersun.
Maybe we'll call in on our way past if we can see what's going on in Deersun today. We don't know anyone else in town, do we?
You know that the alderman of the village is a man called Emmanuel Brown. You don't really know him. You've probably seen him a couple of times, like passing through. But given everything that's gone on recently, the people of Deersun seem to be like a little more sort of closed off, a little bit more private than the people of like New Zealand. Obviously, New Zealand is getting set up to like, yes, we want to be like a trade port, so they're trying to get people in. They want to encourage people to come in, whereas Deersun are like, oh, we want a little quiet village. We'd just like people to like leave us alone. So they're a little bit more sort of like, local village for local people, shall we say?
Because we spoke to one of the sort of councillors or elder types or whatever they were called last time, when I think it was Weimar, wasn't it? When we was discussing when the soldiers come back to us.
Yeah, one of the elders, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you might assume that these guards that you're now seeing there are sort of as a result of you guys saying, "Oh, pirates are coming." You might want to get on that. But obviously, the guards here themselves, presumably because they're new guards, they don't know you. But like I say, they seem to be sort of like more on a wary footing, like keeping an eye out rather than like, oh, we've got to like attack anyone who shows up because they're probably pirates. they're sort of like, oh, there might be pirates coming, so we're on a bit of a high alert, but they're not on like anyone who turns up we don't recognise, we've got to like insta kill or anything like that.
That's cool.
So I think we should talk to the alderman and ask about strangers passing through or asking about.
That's fine. You speak to the guard, and he takes you across to one of the slightly larger buildings. He knocks on the door and says, "Alderman Brown, there's some visitors here to see you." And you're a bit of like bumping around and someone like murmuring inside the building. Then the wooden door opens, and you see an old man, sort of slightly straggly beard, like quite severe sort of haircut, stood there. He's got like furs pulled around him. He's a little bit on the thin side. He looks out and he sees you and he's like, "Oh, good morning."
Good morning. I hope all is well.
Well, as it can be, I suppose.
Indeed. You may remember us. We've passed through a number of times. We were here when you were visited by the Inquisitors.
Yes,
You may
yes.
recall.
Yes, I do recall. Dreadful business. Dreadful business.
Yes, indeed.
And thank you for your timely warning about potential pirate threats. Luckily, Staffstone Tower has kindly agreed that they sent us 10 guards to make sure we were safe. And then he like looks from you to the guard who stood next to you, and he says, "Has there been any sign of those 5 of your men who set out from here the other day? I was expecting them to be back by now." He says, "No, I'm afraid not, Alderman. I was going to send someone out to follow their trail and see what had become of them, but obviously then these fellows turned up, and I thought it best to deal with that first."
And where did your missing men, where were they going?
At which point Alderman Emmanuel Brown turns back towards you, Malcolm, and he says, "Well, it's a strange business, to be honest. I don't know if we told you when you were here previously, but you remember part of the reason that stirred up all that problem with the people from Tozen originally was we'd been getting strange blights and rot afflicting our stores that we'd set by for the winter, our crops in our barns, and people had been seen lurking about it. Well, a few nights ago, we saw a strange figure lurking around the barns, and when we tried to apprehend it, the figure fled along the coast to the west. 5 of these soldiers here went off in pursuit, but that was a day ago. We've not seen hide nor hair of them since."
And this creature, strange figure, do you know, could you make out if it was human or?
He says, "Well, it looked human. I couldn't give you any of the details. My eyes on what they were." He said, "That's the odd thing. Each time someone's been noticed behaving strangely around the barns over the last few weeks, it's normally been someone from the village. And when we've spoke to the person from the village, they've claimed to have been nowhere near the barn. And in fact, a couple of times, the person who's been seen near the barn is someone we know couldn't possibly be here. Someone who's either left the village or who is resting in Leander's grace."
Mm.
And that's why we weren't sure what to do. But that's why we were glad when these soldiers from Staffstone turned up. We thought surely they would be able to get to the bottom of it, being far more well equipped and well trained than simple villagers like ourselves.
But it would seem not. And tell me, these aberrations that look like villagers, have you ever spoken to them?
He says, "Well, some people, I haven't personally. Some of the villagers have attempted to thinking it was a fellow villager, attempted to speak to them, but they've always simply withdrawn or left the area. As far as I'm, the strange thing is, we've only ever seen like one person ever lurking around the barns. We've never seen groups of people. It's always been one person, but the person's always been different.
Ah, that is interesting. And you say they went west along the coast?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. We ourselves go west along the coast, so we'll keep an eye out and send word should we see anything out of the ordinary.
Thank you. I'm sure the lieutenant here would be most grateful for any news of his men that you could bring back to us. Assuming that's fine with you, Lieutenant. To which one the guard nods and he says, "Yes, I'd like to know if my men are still alive or what's become of them. Like I say, I was expecting them to have reported back by now."
And we get a description so we don't encounter 5 hostiles trying to dress up like your guards.
Yeah, he gives you descriptions of his men.
Sounds more like witchcraft again.
The elder man says, "Yes, well, to be honest, that's what we thought. I mean, that's sort of what led to that whole mess with the those fellows from Tozan. I mean, they played upon our fears, which were already inflamed by the events that were going on, and much as I'm ashamed to admit it, it was all too easy to let ourselves believe that some sort of curse or affliction, some sort of witchcraft had been levied against us. I mean, we can't afford to keep losing supplies at the rate we are, particularly with the winter coming on as it is. I mean, we're okay at the minute because we can replenish them, but obviously it's getting harder and harder to do as the weather's getting worse and the season's turning colder."
Yeah, I suggest you put guards on your store.
Well, yes, now we've got these fellows from Staffstone. Of course, the provisions are always guarded, but it wasn't really an option for us before. I mean, we're simple farming folk. We're not soldiers or anything like that. And even if we had have put someone on guard, well, the person, people, whatever, who was lurking around always appeared in the guise of a fellow villager. And who would raise the alarm saying, I saw a villager in the village?
I'll make sure they these guards stay in twos. It seems very mysterious and very odd.
The guard who stood there doesn't say anything, but he gives you a nod.
Well, let us be about our business.
Okay. So, are you guys planning on travelling on?
Is this at the end of the day, or is this?
It's pretty early in the day when you arrive at Deersun.
Yes. So we might as well push on then, haven't we?
Yeah, so I'd like to swing by Ariana's and make sure she's okay, and then we can follow the coast west and see if we can't find these soldiers and whatever. It's hunting crops.
I think she would just
Is
north
there any
of
way
the
to
town.
buy like raggedy clothing from this village so we can kind of like try and disguise ourselves?
Oh yeah, you can easily get basic equipment here. That's not a problem. I mean, a couple of copper pieces will get you some like raggedy ass villager clothing. That's not a problem.
To try and throw off the assassins people, we're going to need to hide.
Okay, yeah. So if you want to buy some ragged villager clothing, I would just say like cross off a silver piece, and that'll like cover you all for like villager clothing.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So you buy like some simple Hessian clothing, some like raggedy travel clothes. I mean, to be fair, it's really not going to disguise Brock very well because he's like a man mountain. But
That's why we're going to cover him in furs.
yeah, absolutely fine. I mean,
got that
you know
way.
that like this clothing you've got, it's not going to survive any like harsh climate or like any sort of serious wear and tear because it's like quite cheap. But as a simple disguise, yeah,
I intend to wear mine over my armaments.
yeah, that's. I assumed you would. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so yeah, you travel to this the home of Ariana, this retired female soldier who was originally part of a group that came across with the settlers to protect them. The rest of her adventuring band then pressed on to carry on exploring Valconan, the Delvers of the Twin Knights. You guys met them previously on the Witch Isle. She decided, because she was like getting near to thinking about retirement anyway, but she like didn't really want to be in the centre of like village life and all the gossip and all the people asking her for stuff all the time. So she like built herself a small, simple like hut just outside Deersun. But yeah, you approach there. There's like a little pen with like probably some like sheep in it. It's just a simple sort of like 2-room cottage. Basically, you can see there's a horse tying up pole outside. Although you know that when you last spoke to her, she didn't have a horse anymore because she gave it to Atrix so that she could get away from the village. But as you approach the cottage, you can see out of like the little sort of like chimney, you can see like smoke like wafting up from it.
Okay, so I guess I'll just approach and knock on the door gently.
You knock on the door. It's opened by Ariana. She's a sort of late middle-aged woman in quite good health and fitness. She has white hair tied back in a ponytail, a couple of like shallow scars on her face. She's wearing like furs and like cold weather gear when she opens the door. You can see she's holding like a tankard of some sort of mulled wine or like heated ale. Effectively there's like a little bit of steam coming out of it. She's just like taking a swig as she opens the door, and she's like, "Oh, hello.
Oh, I hope you're well.
Yes, please, and she sort of looks at the grey sky with the snow. She's like, "Please, come inside out of the cold weather and sit yourself down. I've just finished making myself a brew." And as she sort of like brushes a load of her tat away from like some simple chairs, you can see there's like a little metal cauldron like hanging over the fire, and you can smell like spiced wine coming out of it. She points at some like a small pile of like pewter tankards that are sort of like lying around on the floor, and like tin cups and whatever, and she's like, "Oh, help yourself. Sorry, I'm not really I wasn't really expecting visitors. I'm just settling in for the winter."
Yes, no, I know. So I'll take a little cup and pour myself a little bit. And I guess I don't know what to say. So I guess I want to swap general news. Blah blah blah. We were at Death's Door when you met us. We're now no longer at Death's Door. We found Trixie in the village to the northeast of here, the name of which I can't remember.
I believe it's the Hamlet of Haven.
Hamlet of Haven.
She said, "Oh, good. I'm glad to hear she made it somewhere safe." Like I said, I precious given how quickly we had to get her out of here. Aside from giving her my old horse and a few supplies, there was precious little I could do for her, to be honest. But I'm glad to hear she made it away safely.
Yeah, she seems to have settled and is happy in Haven.
Good.
And really, I just stopped by to see if you had everything you needed for the winter. I understand Deersun is still having some blight problems with their food supplies.
Yeah, so I've been hearing the strange rumours that have been coming out of Deersun. I mean, I go down there occasionally, just to sort of show my face, etc. But I'm largely self-sufficient here. I've got my sheep and my goat. They should see me through the winter. I've got some other stores that I've set by for myself. I mean, my needs are fairly meagre as far as such things go. But yes, I've heard they've been having some trouble with their stores.
Yeah, so apparently seems to be some creature or some strange figure that they've seen near the barn. Potentially can make itself look like other villagers, it would seem.
It's funny you should say that, because a couple of weeks ago when I was sort of passing through, basically, I could have swore I saw Atrix there, and obviously I knew she wouldn't be there, because obviously I helped her escape. I actually tried to flag her down and find out what was going on, but when I tried to get her attention, she ran off, and I lost sight of her amongst the buildings.
Yeah, that seems to be a regular occurrence there, that people who have moved on or passed on or not available have been seen and withdraw when approached. And when startled, recently, the night before last, I think, this figure or this creature ran west along the coast and was followed by 5 guards who haven't returned. But we go west ourselves, so we'll see if they can be found. Yeah, so I also wanted to ask you to keep an ear out in town for people who are asking about us.
Of course. Is there anything in particular I should be on the lookout for?
We believe there are a group of assassins who call themselves the Brotherhood of the Black Rose, who are on our trail.
You notice her face goes a little bit pale when you say that.
I see you have heard of these assassins.
Yes, well, as you know, I've done my time in the military, and I mean, well, we've all heard the rumours. A secret organisation of killers that mix in with other organisations, putting their agents here, there, and everywhere until the moment is right for them to strike. I don't think I've ever actually seen a member of the Brotherhood, but I've certainly heard of them.
Yeah, so we've come across one on our way here. So we believe they've been hired to murder us in our sleep. But should you hear word of them?
Just a little bit confused, and then says, "Well, from what I hear, and I'm no expert, the services of the Brotherhood that don't come cheaply. And what did you do, if you don't mind me asking?"
We have tangled with some slave traders, pirates. Not far east of here. And it seems they have an awful lot of money, because 2,000 gold crowns is the price they have put on our heads.
Are these the same pirates the people in Deersun are so worried about recently?
Yes, we believe so, or connected at any rate.
I see.
They were capturing and enslaving members of the Ice Walker tribes in a cove not far from here, and we came across them, and we did what we do when we come across those of a less than savory nature, but it seems that one of them escaped the news, and since then we have had a number of assassins stop by to pay their regards.
I see.
So yeah, interesting times we live in.
Indeed.
But yes, I really wanted to stop by, let you know that we were well, make sure that you were set up for the winter, and
well, it's just the kindness is much appreciated, and I'm glad to see that you all seem to be getting along well. I'm sorry to hear about your recent troubles. Of course, I'll keep an ear out for anyone asking about you in Deersun. if I do hear anything, how would you like me to get the news to you?
If you could just send word to New Zealand,
Yes, of course.
there is a messenger service starting. They may help, or if you can find someone to travel. Otherwise, we'll stop by as and when we're in the area. Just
Okay.
to
Well,
stop the news.
yes, that's fine. Well, as I say, I'll definitely keep an ear out for you.
Much appreciated.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, with the winter coming in, I think we've pretty much got to start looking after each other. I mean, we're not going to have any help from anyone else once the real cold weather starts settling in and travel starts getting difficult.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. Well, I think we've taken up enough of your time.
No, it's nice to see friendly faces, and you're all welcome to rest here as long as you will, and help yourself to the wine, of course. Yes, it's nice to see anyone other than those superstitious villagers, to be honest.
Yes, indeed. Well, then maybe we'll spend the night and we can swap more war stories.
No, yes, of course. She takes out like a small sort of like Hessian bag from like down by the side of her chair, puts it on the arm of the chair. You see her like fumbling around. She takes out like a pipe and puts a little bit of tobacco in it and starts like chuffing away on this pipe. She says, yes, of course, you're welcome to stay for as long as you wish. I don't have much I can offer in the way of food and drink, I'm afraid. I mean, this is this is probably my. She jerks at them at the cauldron. This is probably my last indulgence before I have to start tightening the old belt, ready for the winter. But I figure I can at least afford to splash out one bottle of wine and warm myself up a little bit before things start getting really cold.
Yeah, that's not a problem. We have our own food that we can avail of.
With that, I'll pour the second cup that I've just taken back into the cauldron.
She as you're sort of about to pour it back in, she sort of smiles and holds up her hand, and she's like, "You're more than welcome to another cup, my ice walker friend. Tell you the truth, if anything, you've probably saved me from drinking a lot of it. Now I've exposed it to the air. It's not as though I can put it back in the bottle, is it? You've probably saved me a headache in the morning, truth be told."
I'll give her a smile and take some more now.
She's like, "Yes, much as I'm getting a bit too old for the sellsword lifestyle. I do sometimes miss it. As I told you before, I'm glad I decided not to settle in the village proper. All that superstition and gossip, and I'm a simple person. I'm used to a soldier's life. It's not for me, but I poke my head in every now and again just to keep an eye on what's going on there, make sure they're okay. But all these strange rumours about their supplies, there's not really much I can do about that, to be perfectly honest.
No, they are a common, ignorant village full of superstitious farmers.
Yes, very true.
So is the plan we're going to actually stay here then, or are we going to travel on?
I think we'll stay and keep her company for the day and then head on.
Okay. Well, I'll do some sort of errands, like go and chop some wood and stock her up and stuff.
Yeah, she's very grateful for that, and obviously she'll be helping out with that, because actually she prides herself on being largely self-sufficient.
Oh yeah.
But she's quite happy to accept the help, like laying in a few extra supplies for the winter, chopping wood, etc. So yeah, she thanks you for that. She serves up like a fairly sort of plain, I suppose, more like sort of porridge it would be for a sort of evening meal. So you're all welcome to partake of that. Like she said, it's simple fare, but basically she's been able to lay in a lot of simple fare rather than a lesser amount more complicated or fancy stuff. She's like, well, I've got plain and simple tastes. Yeah, this will see me through the winter.
Yeah, certainly suits Brock. He's up for that.
And you can see, as you're sort of like helping her take the wood in and whatever, you can see Brock that she's obviously been doing like a little bit of hunting. You know, she's got like some rabbits and stuff like that, sort of like hung up. And there's a few like rabbit skins and stuff around. So she's obviously been doing a little bit of hunting in the woods as well to supplement her supplies.
Yep.
And she makes a remark. She's like, oh yes, well, you know, whilst I can still go out and do that with the weather, I'm trying to lay in as much as I can. I mean, I doubt there'll be precious little of that about once the real winter kicks in.
I'll make sure she's got some sort of like storage area that she can keep stuff really cold. She's like dug a hole, and you know, she's make sure she's fully prepared. And
yeah, you give us some
she's up for
pointers
that.
on like how the ice walkers like preserve food to like last through the long winters, all of which she seems quite interested in. She knows a fair, you know, like salting meat and stuff like that. She's all fine with that, but there's a few like bits and pieces you're able to like tell her that your people do that she'd maybe not considered, which she's quite grateful for, and she takes on board and thanks you for.
Yeah, some sort of snow hole or
Yeah.
ice hole or something. Or whatever. Yeah, cool.
And unless anyone else has anything they want to bring up with Ariana, the rest of the evening passes pleasantly. You know, she's got a fire burning. It's fairly warm in her huddle, and there's like furs about, etc. There's no real sort of like bed, so to speak. She just like dosses down on like a thick fur, but there's chairs around and stuff like that, like furs thrown over them. There's more of this mulled wine. There's this porridge, bit of meat thrown in like a stew later on, and the evening passes pleasantly but uneventfully. And nothing untoward happens during the evening, and you wake up refreshed in the morning.
Cool.
Now let's make an early start of it. See what
Yeah.
we can find.
See if we can't find the tracks of these soldiers.
Or this cave.
Okay. So, in the morning, you continue your journey heading along the coast. Are you looking out for anything in particular?
Guess we're trying to find the tracks of the soldiers if that's possible.
Well, it'll be difficult because of obviously the snowfall, which is still falling. But if anyone's got a tracking skill, you can make a roll on that. That's absolutely fine.
I'm going to look out for more assassins.
Yeah, no problems.
Right, what have I got?
Okay, so you do manage to find some of the tracks that these soldiers have left. It's a little bit difficult, but with your expertise, you're able to find it. And you're sort of following on. You're on an area where the coast is more sort of like cliff-like. And as you're sort of heading along there, from sort of over the edge of this cliff, you hear this voice like,
So, I guess I'll approach and meekly look over.
yeah, no problems. You glance over the cliff side, and as you look down to like this sort of shallow track of like shale beach below, you can see what appears to be a man clad in a similar manner to the guards you saw back at Deersun. His body appears quite twisted, sort of broken. There's like blood splattered nearby him as though he's like fallen off the cliff. His like legs and arms are twisted at an odd angle, and you can hear this weak sort of voice coming from him like, help, help.
And how far down is it from the cliff?
Maybe 60 feet.
Okay. And is it like a path to kind of get down, or is it like sheer?
It's pretty sheer.
Okay. So I have rope, but I only have 50 feet. Does anyone else have rope that we could tie together?
I've got some rope, yeah.
Okay. So I think we'll tie 2 bits of rope together and use it to abseil down.
Yep, not a problem. You head down, you sort of abseil down to the bottom of this cliff, and you can see this man wearing sort of like quite badly dented, obviously, armour and the tattered raiments of one of the Fort Eastburn guards, and he's lying all sort of twisted and broken up at the bottom of this cliff, having obviously fallen over it and landed on this sort of shale-like stony stretch of beach at the bottom of it. He looks in quite a bad way. You suspect that both of his legs are broken and possibly one of his arms. You can see he's managed to like sort of pull himself like maybe like a foot along the beach, but he's like obviously like struggling. Like I say, most of his limbs are broken.
Okay. So does he look like one of the descriptions we were given?
He does, yeah.
Okay. So I'll approach and give him a small bit of water, and then ask him.
Thank you.
Tell me what happened to you and the rest of the men.
He's like, sir, it was some kind of devilry. I was, as we were exploring, trying to follow this figure that had been spotted. A thick mist seemed to come up all around us, and then, and this is going to sound strange, sir, but I swear I saw my wife, sir, beckoning to me in the mist, and I ran towards her, and as I did, the ground just seemed to give way beneath me, and then I was plummeting off the edge of the cliff. I didn't see what happened to the rest of the men. I think I must have passed out when I landed, but then I woke up here, and I'm barely able to move. I've almost made myself hoarse shouting for help.
Yes, it's lucky that we were looking for you. I'll have to tie the rope around you to get you up the cliff. It is likely to be incredibly painful.
He nods, and then he sort of like with his one good arm, he like reaches around and he takes out like a badly sort of like bent like dagger. Like he can't even get it out of the hilt out of the scabbard. He has to just like pull it out, scabbard and all, and he literally like sticks it between his teeth and like clamps his teeth down on it and like nods at you.
So I'll basically tie it around under his around his waist or his chest under his arms, and I'll give the guys the 2 tubs to pull him up.
When I see Malcolm doing this, I'm going to sort of call down to him, make some splints, and I'll sort of throw down some sticks to him or something away from, just to make it a bit more sort of stable and hopefully make it less painful and less chance of him passing out and stuff.
Yeah, that's
cool. So I'll splint his legs and his broken arm, and
that's fine. Around the sort of dagger he's got his teeth clamped on, he's just splinting up. You can hear that. But yeah, you get him splinted up. You give the 2 tugs. The rest of you guys start sort of heaving him up, and you can hear him sort of like grunting around this dagger that he's clamping his teeth down on as you're sort of like pulling him up. But after a short time, you've got this unfortunate broken man. You've sort of like you've winched him in effectively, and he's at the top of the cliff.
Yeah, we lift him up, untie it, and pass the rope back down for Malcolm, obviously.
Yeah, you're able to like grab the rope and like abseil back up and rejoin your companions.
Cool. So I'll tell everyone then that about the mist and the vision that the guard seen that kind of led him astray, and I guess then our choices are we can bring him back to town, or we can try. We can leave him in the cart for
How
an
far
hour
out?
and try and find his.
Yeah, how far out are
companions.
we?
Sorry, say again.
How far have we since we left Deersun? Would you say?
You're about half a day from Deersun.
I mean, he does need some serious medical or rest, doesn't he?
Yeah, but let's take an hour or two and try and find his companions.
Are you still able to track any more? Is there any more tracks you can find, Malcolm?
Yeah, you pass the roll. You don't have to make another roll for it. So yeah, you can see these tracks appear to be sort of like following the sort of edge of the cliff, sort of along it as they're moving along the coast.
Okay. Right, so I guess we'll follow them for an hour or so and
See
see.
if we can find any more. Yeah.
Okay, no problems. So you continue following the tracks along the coast. As you do so, you notice the tracks appear to stop at what looks like a very sort of narrow, like sort of path that snakes down the cliffside. And the path sort of appears to go to a cave that at the moment is almost underwater. Like you can just see the top of the cave mouth above the water. Like presumably at a lower tide, the cave will be more accessible.
Just a thought here, but how do we know if we encounter one of these guards that it's going to be the guard and not this apparition?
Well, future ones. That's a good point. But obviously, this won't be. Well, I wouldn't have thought the apparition would be in this condition. But have we got any way of detecting, or? I mean, we've
It
got
won't
no knowledge.
engage when we speak to it.
Well, that seems to be the case, doesn't it? And it
Yeah.
would be on its own as well, I would imagine. So if there's more than
Probably
one,
well. I suspect the guards aren't well.
We can always take a swipe.
Hmm.
I'd imagine any apparitions would be fine with that.
well, yeah, if it's that sort of
Yeah.
witchcraft. Or
So should we
nasty.
wait for a lower tide?
Is it fully submerged? Did you say?
It's not fully submerged. Like it's pretty well underwater. You can see like the very top of the cave just above the water.
And the prints go down that path.
Well, the path's made of stone, so there's not really any like
Oh.
prints on the path. But the prints in the snow and whatever lead up to the path. So you may assume that they've gone down there.
And was Malcolm able to detect how many sort of people we were following? And
I would
Anything like
I would
that.
say with Malcolm's role, yeah. Originally, up until you reach the point where this guy was, it was 5 people. Then obviously like 4 people sort of carrying on beyond there, presumably because one fell off the cliff.
yeah, so it has still been 4 up
Yes,
to now. Yeah.
you've not seen any tracks that were left by this like apparition or whatever it was that he saw.
Nothing's added or sort of
No.
gone off in another direction or anything. Yeah. So how long would I think that we'd have to wait for this tide, knowing the sort of seasons? And...
You think you'd probably have to wait till like early evening.
Is it like lunchtime now?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't fancy the swim. I suggest we wait.
Well, I feel we're obliged to at least investigate.
Yeah.
We can go and look, as the tide's going down, maybe when it's half, or see if there's
Yeah.
any extra signs before it's fully clear.
So let's do that then. Let's just set up a camp at the top of the cliff. Suggest we identify some sort of secret word, so that we know that it's each other. should we bump into
I mean, is
something.
it worth trying to get some information from this guy that only the guards would know, in case we do speak to this creature or thing? You know, something we could ask them that only they would know, and we could catch them out.
It's certainly worth asking. If you'd know them well enough.
I mean, yeah, we'll have a quick word with him, and he's obviously heard about this creature they were trying to follow, and
Yeah, so what do you say to him?
I don't know what you know of this creature, but we've been told it seems to be taking the shape or form of other people, and I believe you told my friend you saw your wife or something.
Yeah, yes, or I thought I did. And as I say, I ran towards her, and in the mist, I must have stepped off the edge of the cliff, and you've seen the results, and he sort of looks down at his like, shattered legs and his arm.
I'm worried if we meet someone, maybe they might not be who they seem. Is there anything we could ask your fellow guards that only they would know? Maybe a name of somebody from the fort, or something we could test who they say they are.
He says, "Well, I suppose you. I mean, obviously we're from Staffstone Tower. You could always ask them the name of our commander, Mercy Dixon. I don't see how any, unless this phantom, whatever it is, can pull information from people's minds. I don't see how it would have any way of knowing that. I mean, we've only recently arrived in the
Your
village.
wife?
Well, yes. Honestly, this sort of thing's a little bit beyond me. I don't really know a lot about this sort of thing.
Did you manage to speak to what you thought was your wife?
He says, "Well, I was calling out her name and she appeared to be holding out her arms to me as I ran towards her, but she didn't answer me."
And she just disappeared.
Well, I honestly don't know. As I said, my feet went out from underneath me. I tumbled off the cliff, and I must have blacked out when I hit the beach. And when I awoke, I don't even know how long later I was alone, and I tried to drag myself towards the path, but it was impossible. So I started shouting for help.
Well, get some rest. We'll do what we can to find your
And I'm assuming
colleagues.
you guys have sort of loaded him onto your cart, effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, you've chucked a fur over him. He's in the cart. He's not terribly comfortable, but obviously better than if he was trying to like crawl or like stumble. At least he can just like lie in the back of the cart with the fur over him.
Yeah, we'll make him as comfortable as possible and give him a bit of water every hour or so, whenever he needs it. A bit of food.
As you're sort of talking to him, he says, Hopkins, by the way, Miles Hopkins. He says, can I at least know the names of my rescuers?
Well, myself, I'm Brock, and I'll introduce Malcolm and Weimar.
He sort of reaches out with a bit of a wince, and he sort of like shakes your hand with his good hand. He says, it's good to know you, Brock, and thanks to all of you for hearing my cries. I don't know how much longer I'd have lasted lying down there, especially not with the tide coming in.
Yeah, your lieutenant was just arranging a search party when we got to Deersun. So
yeah, so that's why I took up shouting. I'd assumed they'd send someone to try and find out what happened to us eventually.
Well, like I say, you need to get your rest.
Yes. I'm going to try and sleep for a while. But if you do need me for anything, please do not hesitate. I know there's precious little I can do to repay you in my current state, but anything I can do, please don't hesitate to call. And he sort of starts like settling himself down, and after a few moments, he's like in a bit of a fitful sleep. Okay, occasionally you hear like a sort of grunt as he like obviously sort of like tries to roll over, and he like leans on like his bad arm, or one of his legs is giving him jip. But he's resting, but fitfully.
Yeah, we'll just wait until we can get some more sight of this cave, really. Investigate, at least have a look in as soon as we can, even if we can't actually properly explore it.
Okay, so you wait for the evening. Are you like taking watches? Or are you all watching the cave? How's that shaking out?
I'm
Yes,
going to
we have-
watch the exterior.
Yeah, 2 people on watch. One watching the cave and one watching the top of the cliffs for travelers or assassins or random creatures.
Okay, so who's watching the mouth of the cave?
I will.
Okay, and who else? You said there's 2 of you watching it.
Sorry, one watching the cave and one watching the cliffs.
Right, I see.
So
No
one on
worries.
watch and someone watching the cave and someone watching the cliffs. Or just
Okay.
watching generally.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll all be pretty much on guard anyway, up the top. I mean, it's going to be hard to sort of settle down. I'll sit in the actual cart to make sure this guy's all right, but I'll be looking out, obviously, as well.
Okay.
Still
no
resting.
problems. Okay, so as it starts getting into the late afternoon, the tide starts to slowly move out. The water level starts to drop, revealing more of this sort of dark, cavernous cave mouth set into the side of the cliff. And as the light starts to like fade into twilight, it's getting a little bit more difficult to see with the naked eye. Malcolm, as you're watching the cave mouth set into the side of the cliff, you see what appears to be a hunched figure wearing like bent over double, wearing like ragged robes or clothes, of tatty old clothes, covered in sort of damp stains and looking quite vile and slime slicked. Comes sort of like hunched over, comes like scuttling out of this cave mouth. With it getting dark and the moon just starting to come out, the figure pauses briefly on the threshold of the cave, looks up into the air, not directly at you, almost as though it's like just looking, like scenting the air, and you see this old, haggard, hook-nosed face with like wisps of white hair sort of illuminated in the moonlight, falling out of this sort of patchwork ragged hood that covers most of it. There's an unhealthy greenish pallor to the face. As you watch the figure, assuming you don't sort of like immediately leap on it, as you watch the figure sort of looking up and around, reaches up and just gently like tugs at the tattered fabric of the hood, and as it does so, the outline of the figure seems to shift and shimmer almost like a heat mirage, and a few moments later, where once stood this hunched backed old crone, now stands what appears to be a man dressed in pretty much the garb that your unfortunate guest is wearing, the soldier's garb of a full teaspoon guard.
Alright. At which point I'd like to shoot it.
Yeah, that's absolutely grand. Feel free to make your roll.
Okay, hang on. Oh. Yeah, not so much.
Okay, so you presumably your bow you were using?
Yeah.
Okay, so you fire your bow. The arrow sails straight and true. However, just as it's about to strike this figure, this now soldier, as it looks like, looks up directly at the bolt whizzing towards them and lets out this low hiss, almost like an animal, like a and you watch as the bolt, like the arrow, sort of bursts into flames and like disintegrates, and just a small like smattering of ash falls around this figure.
Okay. At which point I let out my best little girly scream and hope everyone comes to save me as I pull out my sword and drop down.
And you see that this soldier, as it now looks like, is sort of obviously followed back where the arrows come from and has like locked eyes with you. Okay, the rest of you guys, obviously like Malcolm's like a bit further down the way, keeping an eye on the cave while you're all watching your respective thing. Those of you who are sharper of hearing, I leave it to your own discretion. You hear the like thump of the arrow being shot, then you maybe hear a coming from down the cliff near where this cave is, and then you hear this loud sort of startled exclamation from Malcolm. What do you guys do?
Grab up the sword and start running down the path towards Malcolm's location.
Okay.
I suppose I would follow Brock once I see him, charging off.
Yeah, so you see this soldier clad in the raiment of Fort Eastburn, sort of stood just beyond the mouth of this cave, like they've just stepped out of it. There's like a thin scattering of ash staining the front of their jerkin. Like Malcolm's still holding his like bow. He's obviously just like fired an arrow that you can't see any sign of the arrow. And this soldier's like looking back at Malcolm, sort of locked eyes with him, and you can see like the eyes of this soldier like entirely black. There's no white of the eyes.
I'm going to run further down the cliff face so that when it comes up the stairs, I'm behind it.
Okay, that's fine. You start running further on the cliff face. However, the creature, whatever it might be, doesn't make any attempt to come up the path. It actually ducks back into the cave, and you hear the sound of like splashing footfalls sort of getting fainter as it presumably moves deeper into this cave.
Well, we can't let it get away, and I'm just going to chase after it.
Yeah, me too.
Full
Straight
pelt.
in.
So I'll follow along, slightly slower.
That's entirely fair. Okay, let me just pop you guys on the map. And whilst I'm going to be popping you guys on the map, I might suggest that we now have like our comfort break, go and refresh your drinks, etc. We'll have a 10-minute break. When we come back, I'll have dropped you all on the map, and we can jump straight into you guys exploring this cave. How does that sound for everybody?
Yeah.
Good, yeah.
Okay, we'll be back in 10 minutes then.
All right, take care.
Wait for the rest to get back and then we'll crack on.
No worries.
I must say, I did like your very decisive way of dealing with the assassin. Oh, he's been sent here to kill us. Oh, bad times for him. We've got there first.
That's it, mate. You could leave him alive, but he's just going to try again.
Yeah. He's just going to be like, yeah, I won't try and kill you again for that 2,000 gold pieces I want.
2,000 gold. What will I do?
Yeah, I'm not just going to go away, like, tool up a bit more and come back later. Not at all. Yeah, professional assassins were famous for just, like, giving up after the first attempt.
That's it. Oh, I failed. I better go home.
That's it, yeah. No hard feelings, mate.
That Assassin's Creed game would have been really short, mate, if that's the case.
So how are you guys finding the session thus far? Any thoughts, ideas while we're waiting?
Thoughts about a shape-shifting snake or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's got hag written all over it, but I don't know if they can do shape shifting. I suppose they can do what they want. Magic. Sounded like a bit of a doppelganger type character at first.
Well, as long as it's not a mimic, we should be all right.
I don't even know. No, I've never faced one of them.
Yeah, they're pretty nasty. They're one of those sort of like gotcha monsters where they always like look like a treasure chest or like a door or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've sort of looked at them or read them, and yeah, they do tend to be sort of objects rather than quite often, don't they?
Yeah, traditionally, yeah.
But they don't have to be, I'm sure.
Alright, we'll just wait till we've got one more back and we'll crack on. So what's Malcolm thinking at this point?
Needs to get a sight on his bow.
Yeah, it's kind of the hunt is on. Really, it's time to. Yeah, the hunt is on.
Okay, splendid. Well, let's jump back into it now. We've got everyone back. Hopefully, you can all see the map.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So you're heading into this this cliffside cavern. You're sort of waist deep in water as you're walking through it. You've heard some splashing up ahead of you. Obviously it's dark in the cavern. I'm assuming you've like lit torches, etc. Obviously not really a problem for you, Malcolm.
No.
What do you want to do? We're not technically in combat rounds, so
Okay, so I guess I just want to head in and towards the sound.
okay, yeah. So You start moving in. Obviously, everyone else feel free to move yourselves likewise, or wherever you wish to move to. As you're heading further in, you see what appears to be there's like a couple of sort of small, I suppose, sort of sandy, stony like islands that are raised up out of the water. There's numerous stones like that have obviously fallen from the walls, etc. And as you're moving further in, from somewhere up ahead of you, but echoing throughout the cave, you hear a low voice going, "Who sent you?"
We came of our own accord. Who are you?
So, this is my home, and you are not welcome here.
I am welcome wherever I go.
Where are the men that came this way?
Gone.
Gone where?
Gone to the deeps. No one invades my home uninvited.
We can't see it yet, I take it.
Nope.
Show yourself, witch.
Okay, at which point, as you say that, I'm just going to move you back
Oh, yeah, cool, yeah.
for a short moment. Brock and Malcolm, you notice something large and sort of silvery moving in the water near you, like perhaps some sort of like large fish or something along those lines.
How large is...
Oh.
Okay.
It doesn't like immediately leap to attack you or anything. I mean, it's very big. I mean, it must be nearly like 30 feet long. You see the sort of silver body as it's like, and the ripples as it's moving through the water.
Has the voice stopped at this point?
Yeah, the voice sort of finished its sentence and hasn't said any more. I mean, to you, Malcolm, with your knowledge of the wilds, and to you, bro, it almost looks like a sort of a sturgeon, but it's like humongous.
Can I try and tame it?
You most certainly can. You have to remind me how that works.
I'm pretty sure it's 2D. It's morale check.
And there's a limit on it, isn't there? Like a hit dice limit.
Yeah, it's a 1 per level. So if it's more than 6, it's a hard no.
Okay, unfortunately, you will not be able to tame this mighty Piscine beast.
Okay.
However, you notice it's literally like making like a beeline towards you and Brock. It's like swimming through the water towards you. You see the ripples and the contrails.
It's definitely coming.
Behind it. Yeah, it's definitely coming towards you.
How deep is the water we're in now?
The water you're in now, like I say, it's like up to your waist.
Okay, so it's still waist high. Okay.
Is that a bit of an island?
Yeah.
Over there,
It is
to the
indeed.
east.
So I will call out to the guys behind us to say, beware of the water, and I will pull out my sword and get ready to swing at this fish.
Okay. Effectively, we're in combat rounds, no surprises there. So, would you like to pick one of you guys to roll a d6 for the players, and I'll roll a d6 for the NPCs, just see who gets to go first.
Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Oh,
2 to beat.
Okay. So it's the NPCs going first. So I'll make a roll, see which of you it attacks. It's 1 to 3. It's Malcolm, otherwise it's Brock. Okay, so it's Malcolm. So it's going to do a bite attack against you. This giant sturgeon. Okay, you take 14 hit points of damage as this huge, like, armor-plated fish, like, smashes into you. And as you watch Brock, it literally, like, sort of grabs Malcolm, like, throws him up in the air and, like, boom! And he disappears inside the fish's mouth.
Okay. That's not good.
That is not good for Malcolm.
So I'm just going to move your token sort of onto the fish token. There we go. Okay, so Brock, what are you doing?
Well, my first initial thoughts would be to basically try and chop his head off and get him out. So I think that's what I would probably do.
That's fine. Make an attack roll.
If I try and do anything clever. Oh, you git.
Okay, so you hack at this fish. However, as I've said, it seems to be sort of pretty well armoured, and its sort of scales turn aside your blow. Quentin, what are you doing?
I'm going to involve stealth and just keep moving around this pillar of stone here.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't have to make a roll for that. The attention's not on you at the minute. Okay.
I'll shout out for anyone that didn't see that. It's swallowed Malcolm.
Okay, so we come over
Just
to...
in case.
Yeah, in case
A
anyone
bit
missed
further
it.
back.
Yeah, so we come across to Weimar and Bullseye, or Wolf's Eye, as he's sometimes known now. What are you guys doing?
Right. There's not a lot we can do, so we're at a bit of a range here. So I suppose what we'll do is we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Shields out. Weapons out.
Yeah, no problems. Okay, so we go on to...
Can I attack it from the inside?
Yeah, you can, yeah, go for it. Since you're inside it, it's only got AC 12, which is more to represent you struggling to, like, get your weapons out and not strike a blow rather than actually problems with hitting it.
Oh, not so much.
Okay. So, yeah, basically, it's not that you've, like, not been able to hit it. It's just that, obviously, you're being, like, squeezed through its innards. So you're, like, you're trying to, like, get your weapons out and you're covered in slime and, like, goo, and you're having trouble grabbing hold of your weapon. Okay, so you will take 2d6 damage. Although, no, you'll take that in the NPC. That was the last turn, so yeah, so we move on to the NPCs. So the NPC, the fish is going to attack Brock, because he's the only one in front of it. Does an 18 hit you? Brock?
17 armor class.
Okay, yeah. So you get buffeted by this fish as it sort of swims past you, taking 5 hit points of damage. Now I'll roll to see how much digestion damage Malcolm takes. You take 7 hit points of damage, Malcolm. And then it's on to the player's turn, so Malcolm.
Same again, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's a hit.
Okay, so that's 5 points of damage.
Okay, no problems. So yeah, you start stabbing it from the inside, basically. Okay, Brock.
So this thing's 30 foot long, you said?
Yep.
So it's going to be ridiculously strong, isn't it?
Yeah, you know from just like how much it sort of like nearly knocked you off your feet when it just buffeted you that yeah, it's very strong. And like you say, you pretty much saw it throw Malcolm up in the air like a rag doll, and then
Yeah. Yeah, it's just too big. I was just thinking I could try and pull it onto the island, but it's gonna be too powerful.
I'd give you a chance, but it would be difficult.
Yeah. Can I tell that Malcolm's still sort of struggling inside, or
You can't really tell because it's sort of like mostly underwater and it's moving around a lot
Yeah.
anyway.
but it's only been a few seconds so far, isn't it? Right.
Yeah, you would know from like, I mean, you're sort of guesstimating this, but you know a lot about animals. You've hunted in Valcone many a time. You would know that even if it had the strongest stomach acid in the world for a normal animal, albeit a big one, that like not about like 6 seconds has passed. So you know it's not enough time to have like fully digested a grown like armored man.
Yep. So I'm gonna make another attack at it until I feel that it's a desperate stage where I'm gonna try something else. So I'll chop at his head again.
Okay, go for it.
Oh, that was it.
That's a bit better, but the other dice let me down this time.
Okay, so since you got a natural 20 on your roll, I'm going to say roll me a d6, and if you get a 1 or a 2, basically your attack has sort of forced it to cough Malcolm up.
Ugh.
Unfortunately not. So, are you attacking it with a spear?
No, this is me two-handed sword.
Your two-handed sword, I guess. Yeah,
I'm
you're just wailing on this thing with your two-handed sword.
Yeah, I'm trying to decapitate it so he can climb out, basically.
Okay, so Quentin, you're sort of like crouching down by the rocks.
How much of this thing is above the surface?
It varies because it's sort of like going up and down, but like normally not much of it. Like occasionally you see like the top of its head or like the sort of like the arch of its back. It seems to be mostly staying below water, apart from when it like came up to like eat Malcolm.
Can I just move around, John? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
just to try and sort of draw its attention to me a bit more.
Yeah.
While the others are coming round.
Yeah, that's fine, mate. No problem.
Yeah.
I'm gonna aim and try and get a flow of when it's moving through the water and parts are coming up. So I've got something to aim at. I am shit at hand-to-hand combat.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. So yeah, so you're aiming. Okay, so Weimar and Wolf's Eye.
Yeah. Going in. So 1, 2, 4. Yeah. It's just going to be which way is the fish, or is it sort of spinning?
Yeah, it's sort of swimming around.
Yeah. So yeah, the idea being basically like just take like an overhand swing with with the sun sword.
Go for it. You pull out the sun sword and immediately like,
yeah,
the sunlight
doves come out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sun like golden sunlight lights up the cavern.
Here we go. It's not going to be undead, so here it is. It's going to be that kind of session.
Yeah, you're sort of like flailing around, like splashing around in the water, but like trying to sort of time when it comes up is quite difficult because it's moving quite rapidly and changing direction. So you're sort of like splashing your sword down. However, when you do draw your sword out and the light blares out, you again hear the voice sort of further on. And Brock, you can now tell that although you can't see anything, the voice is coming from like the other side of the island that you're sort of stood on. And you hear this voice go, "Ah, filthy Magus." There's like this sunlight spreads everywhere.
You don't like that.
Okay, so on to the next round. So the fish, it's either going to be Weimar or Brock. So I'll do a quick d6. So 1 to 3, it's Weimar. Okay, so it's Brock. you take 4 hit points of damage as you feel like the needle sharp teeth of this giant sturgeon that clamp onto one of your legs under the water. I'll roll to see how much damage Malcolm takes. You take 6 hit points of damage, Malcolm. However, obviously, you can now attack it back. Like I say, because you're inside it, you only need to beat AC 12.
Ooh. So that's 8 points of damage.
Okay, and again, you can
Nice.
roll a d6. If you get a 1 or a 2, it coughs you up.
Oh.
So no, it doesn't. However, because of that roll, I'm going to say Brock, as you're sort of, you've deliberately said you're like trying to work out if like Malcolm's still in there. As you're watching it, at one point you see like the tip of like a weapon from inside it like break through the skin from the inside and then like disappear back in. So you now know like Malcolm is still in there, and he's obviously like.
Yeah. That gives me a bit more hope.
Okay, Brock, what are you doing?
With that renewed hope that he's fighting out, I shall hit round the mouth where there's no danger of hitting Malcolm, hopefully. I don't know what we need. What do we need?
Okay, you attempt to swing your sword at it, but you're unable to land a decisive blow on it as it darts back and forwards in the water. Okay, Quentin, you've been aiming, so you get a +1 to your attack roll if you do a ranged attack.
Yep.
Oof.
Oof.
Nice.
Yeah, so presumably are you firing a crossbow at it?
Yes, mate.
Okay, yep, so Weimar, as you're sort of like heading in with Wolf's Eye, you hear the and you see a crossbow bolt embed itself in the side of this fish as it sort of briefly surfaces. You see like a thin sort of wisp of blood in the water. Okay, Weimar and Wolf's Eye.
Excellent. So Wolf's Eye comes in as well, and it's hacking time. Sun Sword. 13.
It's not enough, I'm afraid.
Wolf's Eye.
The man, the legend.
Yep. Is it going to be a fish eye? We'll see soon. It might just be.
Boom.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, so. Okay, yep, so Wolf's Eye wades in, he's like shanking this thing good. There's now an awful lot of blood in the water. The movements of this fish are like becoming a good deal more frantic. Okay, so on to the next round. I'm going to make a roll to see who it's going to attack. So 1 to 2 Weimar, 3 to 4 Wolf's Eye. Okay, so it's Brock.
He really doesn't like you, Brock.
I particularly like it either.
Okay, however, as it comes at you, Brock, you're able to like sort of scramble up a little bit more onto the island, like out of its reach as it sort of like looms out of the water, Jaws style, with these needle teeth snapping at you. But you're sort of able to like scurry a little bit further up onto the embankment, and it sinks back into the water. See how much damage Malcolm takes. That is 10 hit points of damage.
Ooh, that'll do. That's 9 points in return.
Yes.
Yep,
Fight
so
back.
you continue frenziedly like stabbing this creature. Delivering a mighty 9 points of damage. this thing's looking like it's not got much fight left in it now. Its movements are becoming sort of turgid and languid as it moves in the water. It's obviously still snapping with its needle teeth, so it's still dangerous. But you can see there's an awful lot of blood in the water. There's numerous rents and holes in the silvery armoured hide of this Piscine menace.
Right, I should take my opportunity then, and see if I can. Oh, come on! Now we're talking.
If we just roll a 1 or 2.
So, Brock, would you like to describe how you, in a mighty fashion, you slay this beast?
Yeah. So obviously it sort of grounded itself a little bit when it had a lunge at me, and it sort of caught itself up on the island a bit. And as it was turning to get back into the water, its gills flapping, I took the opportunity and just double-handed or two-handed sword into the gills and just sliced the head straight off.
Indeed, you slice the head straight off. There is an outpouring of foul-smelling fish guts and viscera into the water, and after a few moments of this like pool of putrescence spreading out from this creature, with much coughing and spluttering, you see a befouled Malcolm like sort of splashing his way to the surface, looking very much the worse for wear.
I should drag him out onto the island as quick as possible.
Yeah, that's fine that you drag him out onto the island. So, Malcolm, describe what sort of state you're in as Brock he manhandled you up onto this embankment.
So I guess I'm basically like, I look like I'm dead. You know, I haven't had any air for almost a minute. I'm really pale, really pallor, more pale than usual. And I guess I'm bleeding from a number of different wounds.
Yeah, you can see like large patches of his skin appear to have been like dissolved away almost by that acid.
And I'm basically curled up in the fetus position on the sandy dunes. Feeling a little bit sorry for myself.
Okay. And that's what happens. What are the rest of you doing?
I'm going to take a sort of defensive position in front of Malcolm, knowing that witch is still about somewhere over the other side of that island.
Indeed, and as you think that, you hear a voice again. I see you have defeated the least of my little pets.
That's not worrying at all.
Tell
Bluff.
me,
It's a bluff.
tell me, foul sorcerers, what brings you to my home?
We're seeking our companions, the men that were coming this way. You seem to have dispatched them. You talk of evil sorcery. You seem to be some evil witch with your witchcraft, changing your appearance. Show yourself.
I am what your kind made me.
I still can't tell where she is now.
No. You think she's somewhere nearby, but it's difficult to tell with the echo of the cave.
And I just shout out, if you give me the chance, I'll unmake you again.
Okay, at which point there is a splash, and this now haggard crone emerges from the water on the far side of the island you're on, and then she's like, "Come then, man of the ice. Look into the gaze of one who has been wronged by more powerful men than you. If you dare."
Yeah, I don't know about the gazing business, but I shall run in and try and decapitate her.
Okay.
She's
Move yourself in and make your attack roll.
not sure if that's enough. 14.
You bring your sword down as you raise this what looks like a fairly withered green tinted arm, but your sword seems to just like scrape down her arm without doing her much harm. And as you do so, she turns towards you, her entirely black eyes widening, and locks eyes with you. And as she does so, you feel like your heart grow cold in your chest, and a sharp pain shoots through your chest. Make me a death save.
Oh, that's not good.
Okay, so for the rest of you guys, you watch as Brock like locks eyes with this woman, and then he goes and topples to the floor.
I'll sort of shove Bullseye towards Harp. Watch over him. And
The old crone sort of like is holding a hand up like that, and she's like, "I hold your friend's heart in my hands. Just the gentlest of squeeze," and she goes like that. And as she does, you see almost like a convulsion runs through the body of Brock that's lying on the floor at her feet. The merest squeeze of my hand, and he is snuffed out.
what is the creature thinking? I communicate to my sword.
Okay. The sword says, she's thinking that. Sorry, it's a little odd. She's thinking that you are evil mages sent here to kill her, and that she should wipe you out as quickly as she could. And also, she's thinking about a small child.
I'll hold up the sun sword.
As you do, she's
I'll,
like,
yeah, I'll sort of, I'll hold it sideways with, with my other hand as well. It's like, we came here not to hurt you at all. We are not evil sorcerers. None of us traffic with that sort of thing.
she says, "A likely story you wield their weapon." And again, she sort of like flexes her fingers slightly, and again, the body of Brock sort of like convulses.
I'll put it in the scabbard. I'll say, we found it in the ruins. It is not. We weren't given this. We came upon it. Honestly.
Okay, make me a charisma roll.
Oh. Brock, I'm sorry if this is the cause of your death.
What a way to kick a man when he's down.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for a charisma roll.
She says, "Well, if you have found it, cast it away, or your friend will die." And she'll hold her hand out dramatically.
I'll undo the clasp with the sort of belt that I have the sword on, and I'll like lift it up and I'll sort of toss it to the side.
Yep, you toss it to the side, at which point she goes like that with her hand, and immediately Brock, the vice-like grip that was like grasping your heart seemed to drive all air from your lungs and almost like paralyzed you with icy lances of pain just stops. You're still lying on the floor, you're a bit breathless, but the pain has just stopped. And there's this like haggard, like green-skinned crone standing over you, like I say, she's just sort of gone like that.
Again, we're not here to hunt you for any sort of evil sorcerers, anything like that. We came here looking for people that were lost, and that is the whole of the matter. You are clearly capable and wronged somehow. Let us please discuss this. I would rather have my friend walk out here with me than not. And I'll sort of motion towards like, I'm gonna grab Brock? Question mark?
Well, let it never be said that I was uncharitable, but remember, as easily as I released my grasp on your companion, I can seize it again. Lest you try any of your devilish warlock trickery!
I am very sure that my friend will not try any of that. I'll sort of grab Brock by the neck and trying to, heft him up. He's a big guy, so it takes some doing. Like I'm lifting with the thighs. It's like, Argh!
I'll be doing the backwards skull.
Yeah. Now this pressure's not entirely gone. You can still feel like it's still there, but it's not like clamping down on your chest like it was previously. You're able to like stand up, and like Weimar helps you to your feet, and this crone sort of like crouch there, like watching you warily.
Okay, we're all good. I have two of my friends clearly in a bad way, and we would all prefer that we discuss calmly.
You should think yourself lucky you did not trespass further into my home. There are far greater dangers than that you have already faced. I would suggest that you could ask your friends if they were still amongst the living.
Are we doing harp? I'll sort of yellow over my shoulder.
I'm up on my feet. So tell me which way you poisoned the food of the people nearby.
I would not have seen them starve. I simply wish to teach them a lesson. A valuable lesson.
What lesson is that?
I would teach them to cast aside their false god that they cling to and embrace the true ways, the old ways.
And which old ways are they?
The ways of my people. Before them, before the Senna came.
Uh-huh.
When we
how many of your people?
There are but few of us. We lived in harmony with the world, but when the Senna came, they thought their way was the right way, the only way. In their arrogance, they believed that it was not enough to simply live with the cycles of nature. One could control it, could master it, and they paid the price, but not before they sought to lift themselves up and exalt themselves by casting down my kind and making us, as you see me now, a withered husk of what I once was.
Were your people called the Ancients? Is that what you called yourself?
At which point she like genuinely like laughs in a sort of like mad cackle, and then says, "No, we are not the ancients. They were long before our time. The ancients once taught the people of this land and lifted them up. And for a time everything was good. But then the Senna came. And as I say, their way was the right way, the only way. And whereas we had always allowed others to do what they would, that was not good enough for the Senna. No, it had to be their way or no way.
Mm.
And they levied their foul arts on us, and they took from us.
So what were your people called?
We simply called ourselves the people. We followed the old ways, the ways of the Horned God and the Great Mother, and we lived in harmony with the cycles of this world. We used our powers in ways that would not cause an imbalance. We took little, knowing that the effect we had would be little on the world. And we tried to tell the Senna, yes, we did. We tried to tell them one cannot master such great forces and impose one's will on it without costs, but they would not listen and see what ruin it brought upon their heads.
And did your people follow the immortals? Or were the immortals the gods of the ancients?
The immortals were the gods of our world. The five and the two. The mother and the Horned One we followed. Those who were part of this natural world, who did not stand above it like the other immortals.
Okay. And did the Senna also follow the immortals?
They,
or did they have their own
followed the five. Although one was cast aside and only the four remained.
Yes. The smoking mirror.
Yes.
Okay. So the immortals are the five plus the two, and your people are sworn to the two, and the Senna were sworn to the five. And do you think the people nearby follow the five?
No, they follow some false created god, some new god.
They do. I myself dislike them for that very same reason.
I would see them driven back to the old ways.
I fear if you continue down this path that there is no good ending for us or you.
As I've said, I would not have seen them perish. I simply wish to remind them of their place in the grand scheme of things. I would have seen them survive the great cold, but there would have been hardship, and in that hardship they would turn back to the old ways, the true ways.
So your ways are the ways of the Senna then, for they too could not live and let live.
My ways are not the ways of the Senna, those filthy warlocks.
But yet you cannot leave these people to live their life in peace. You wish to impose your will upon them in the manner of the Senna.
Only to remind them that their false god will not help them here in this old land.
But the reason for it is not relevant. Only the action.
That seems
And
to
the
cause,
action is to
that seems to
interfere.
cause a pause, and she's like, obviously like considering what you're saying. Then she sort of like shakes her head a little bit and says, "There can be no forgiveness for the Senna, not after what they took from me."
Aye, but these people are not of the Senate. They follow different gods. They know nothing of the Senate, nor the immortals that the Senate followed. And yet you would impose your ways upon them in the manner of the Senate.
I recognize the signs. In time, they would believe that they could tame this land, and they would seek to impose their mastery upon it, and they would cause themselves far greater hardship than I might cause them. Better to nip it in the bud early and prevent
As the Senate would have done.
No, the Senna would not have done that. The Senna would simply have rode into your village, cowed everyone there with their magic, and told them what they were going to do.
Aye.
And those who sought to oppose them would die horribly, like my sisters.
But you yourself have rode into the village to try and cow these people.
I have not slain them, though. I have
Yeah,
not caused
no,
them
but
any
you-
great danger. I've simply tried to nudge them in the right direction.
But yet you have given them no way of knowing what it is that you require. Only that their food is being destroyed.
Yes, and at a later time when they were more receptive, then I would have made myself known to them, and I would have provided them with help to see themselves through the long, cold winter.
And what price would this help cost?
There would be no price, but I would hope that once they had I would wait until they had realised that their false god was not going to help them. Then I would help them.
I see. I see. I fear you have more in common with the Senate than you would like to acknowledge.
The only thing I have in common with them is that many of my sisters lie in the same great grave that many of their putrid corpses were eventually dumped into when they were blamed for the great ice that came upon Valkonen.
Indeed. Indeed. So it seems we find ourselves at an impasse.
I am nothing like them. I have taken no one's children or directly killed anybody.
No, but you enforce your will in the same way.
She sort of looks at you sideways. Then what do you propose?
I propose that you agree to leave me and mine and the people of the villages to follow whichever gods we see fit, and we in turn leave you in peace to follow whichever gods you see fit.
That bargain does not seem to benefit me overly much.
Well, that is true, I guess.
Going
And-
back tribute.
What sort of tribute?
Well, generally, they could provide you with, say, some food, sustenance, and in return you could offer them guidance.
She looks a little bit more interested in what you're saying, Quentin, and then says, I have a counter proposal. A long time ago, when I was much different to this ruined form you see before you now, before the Senna did this to me, I had a child who I would have trained to follow in our ways and who I would have passed my knowledge on to. But the Senna took my child from me. They took my precious Akbeat from me. And now I need someone else to pass my knowledge on to.
Tell us of your Akbeat, for that is a name that we have heard of late.
Yes, Akbeat, my poor child. Like many of the children of my people, like myself, Akbeat was born in tune with the natural ways of this world and the flows and the winds of power that move through it. But when the Senna cast my people down, they took her from me as they took many others. Any child that had a touch of the talent, they took to raise and make in their own image.
Okay.
And then when I found out what they had done with my daughter, if I had had the power then to hold all of the Senna in my hands as I held your friend's heart, I would have snuffed them out without a hesitation, so great was my anger. But it was not within my power, diminished as I am.
So you require a new...
Yes.
disciple?
A new pupil. Someone I could pass my knowledge on to so that when I am gone, the teachings of my people will not be lost. Like so much sand in the wind, and she picks up a little bit of sand from the island and just lets it fall through her fingers.
Would one of us suffice?
You are. She looks like she's about to say something quite insulting and then stops herself, and she's like, no, I'm afraid you are already too old for what I have to teach. It needs to be a young mind, one that is receptive, malleable, and can be taught the knowledge that I have to teach.
I am a young man by my people's reckoning.
She gives you a look as if she's like, He's like, you are too old. It must be someone fresh with a mind untainted by the rigid views of this world.
How old must it be?
No more than 9 or 10 years of age.
Let us do this then. If you will agree to stop your campaign of terror against the local people until after the Great Freeze or the harsh winter, we will return in the early spring with a suitable disciple.
But the other question is, are you still able to bear children?
No. And she actually looks like a bit sad when she says that. No, rather like my previous appearance and much of my power, the Senate took that from us as well.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. I suppose I should consider myself one of the lucky ones. Most of my sisters lie in an unmarked grave days from here. I still sometimes go there and talk to them as though they can hear, but they are long gone from this place. The only small glimmer of satisfaction I take is that when the people turned on the Senna, many of them were dumped into the same grave where they had once cast my sisters.
So, have we an accord?
Yes. We have an accord.
Well, then we shall leave you to your day
Which
and
point
be
says,
about our business.
very well, but I should warn you, do not double cross me. But as a show of good faith, she reaches inside her robes and she pulls out like a sort of a clamshell, basically, and then she like spits in the clamshell and she like holds it out towards you.
So I'll take it off her and then look at her as if I don't know what I'm doing.
She goes,
Rather you than me.
To drink it, I guess that's what you mean. Okay. Well, fuck it, I'm already indebted to a goblin. So I will drink it.
okay, it tastes absolutely rancid as you would expect. You're drinking someone's spit. Roll me a d6.
Ooh. 6.
You regain 6 hit points.
Oh, nice. Okay.
She says that it. You see, like some of your lesser wounds sort of like close over a little bit. You still feel a bit shaky, but a little bit better. She's like, that is a sign of good faith, but I warn you, I will know if you attempt to double cross me.
Now we have an accord. We will do what we can,
I hope so.
and we will return come the spring.
Even though your friend, and she gestures at Weimar, wields the weapons of the Senna, and you have something of their look about you.
Well, I'll take it away from here. No need to worry.
Good. As she's doing that, you actually, just you, Weimar, in your mind, you hear the voice of the sword say, not sure if this is worth mentioning, but every time she's mentioned her child, it's like a huge pit of sadness opens up inside her.
Yeah, I nod mentally.
Yeah.
Not wanting to start and talk to the sword because that she probably doesn't like that sort of thing. But yeah, if the sword is reading Weimar is sort of acknowledging and saying that he's sort of clocked on to the same idea.
Yeah, and as you're doing that, the crone is continuing to talk. She says, there is one more thing I would ask, as a sign of good faith on your part. When the Senna took my child, my precious Hackbeat, as they took many, they used them in their profane, blasphemous ritual, used them up and then cast them aside like empty husks. But I was not even given the dignity of being able to bury my child. They took the bodies far to the north of here and laid them down in one of their odious buildings, one of their tombs. I would bury my child, but I cannot enter such a place.
Where would you bury this child? Here? I'll just nod at the water.
No, I inhabit this dank place because, twisted and broken as they made me, this is all I have left. I would see my child laid down somewhere green, somewhere in nature.
Would such an action suffice in place of a child?
Yes. If you can return my precious Akbeat to me, and I could finally lay her to rest, I would consider that recompense enough.
And what if she lives still? As a creature of evil.
At which point again she lets out a cackling laugh. Then I would see what has become of my child and judge for myself what is to be done. But as I've said, I cannot enter the places of power of the Senna.
Okay. I fear that I may need to slay your child to fulfill your request.
If my child truly has become a creature of the Senna, then you would be doing her a favour. And I would then deem it a service if, once done, you could return the body to me for burial.
Okay.
Did you name the temple? Or should you say a temple to the north?
She said it was one of the Senna tombs to the north.
Okay. Very well. We shall return. How long is it to the winter? To the deep winter?
It's like a month or two.
Okay. And then 3 months of deep winter, is it?
That's right, yep.
Okay. So, and then does it go straight from deep winter into like a spring, or is there like just straight?
It goes into a spring, yeah.
Okay. So I think, so in order to travel that far north, I think that it will be the summer before we can return.
That is fine. As I've said, I will know if you are shirking or betraying your promises.
No, yes, we will see this. We will see this action done.
In a very real sense, a part of me will always be with you.
Indeed. So, yeah, okay. So we will return before the middle of the summer with what news we have, and hopefully the body of your child for burial.
It is agreed. You may leave now if you wish. If you have anything further you need to ask me to fulfill your end of the bargain, ask it now.
I would have the bodies of our slain companions for burial if such a thing could be arranged. A minor trifle.
Very well. And she reaches into her ragged cloak and she pulls out what appears to be a small sort of like whistle, like made out of a shell, and she throws it across to you, and she says, "Go into the chamber to the east of here, where the water runs black, and blow this, and you will have your bodies."
Okay.
Can I have your name?
Says, "The only name I have left is Green Teeth. Peggy Green Teeth."
Well, thank you for the parley, Peggy Greenteeth.
"I can see you at least have some wisdom in you. What is your name, young child?"
Quentin.
"Quentin. A strange name." But she nods.
Okay. So I will head over here.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to go with you.
Okay, yeah, you walk over a little sort of like sandbank into a flooded cave beyond, and you can indeed see the water is like an inky black colour.
And I'll blow the whistle and see what happens.
Okay, you blow the whistle, and from out of the inky blackness, a huge tentacled creature rises up out of the water. These huge tentacles sort of dripping this black inky water. A convulsion seems to run through this large cephalopod, and it disgorges the corpses of 4 humans. You can see some of them have got like shreds of like the guard uniform still on them, but obviously it's been like eaten away by like stomach acid and stuff like that. But these 4 bodies are disgorged onto the sandbank near where you stand, and then this creature begins sort of like sinking back into the inky blackness of the water.
Okay.
Drag them back as quick as possible.
Yeah. So I'll grab one because I'm half dead, and call Weimar to grab another, and then hope Brock can carry 2.
That's fine. The one slight advantage of them being like partially dissolved is they're actually pretty light, so it's not a problem for you guys to like manhandle them out. Peggy Greenteeth doesn't like make any moves to like interfere with you while you're doing so.
Okay. I think we want to get out of dodge.
Rapid.
Okay. That is absolutely fine, and you leave the cave via the same way that you entered it. As you head out through back into the outside, you hear the echoing voice of Peggy Greenteeth behind you saying, "Don't forget our bargain."
I won't.
And then you step out of the cliffside cave.
Okay.
Which I will now mark on the map so you know where it is. There we go. Okay, so what's the plan, guys? Have you got anything else you particularly want to do before we sort of wrap up for the evening?
Just get the bodies and the injured guy back to Deersun, I think is...
Yep.
That's not a problem. It takes you a little bit of time, but obviously you've got the cart, etc. So you're able to get the bodies back to Deersun. Obviously the guards who are still at Deersun are like surprised when you roll up and you're like, "Oh, here's one of you guys who's nearly dead. Here's 4 who are very, very dead." And obviously they ask you what's happened. What do you tell them?
We found them like this in a cave.
The lieutenant says, any any sign of this strange individual that's been lurking around the village? I mean, do we need to post extra guards, send out patrols?
No, we didn't see anything. I guess just keep extra watch on the barns, and yeah, just be careful on the cliffs and don't fall off.
Yes, I think given what you've said and the unfortunate fate that's befallen our people here, I think we should, especially with the weather getting worse, we shouldn't risk sending out any further patrols. We'll post double guards on the stores at Deersun though to make sure they're not interfered with any further.
Yeah, I think that sounds wise.
Thank you for recovering our men. I wish you had found them in better circumstances, but it is greatly appreciated that you've been able to return them to us.
Yeah, well, we did find Miles, and Miles is, while not well, he is at least alive. Yeah, it's a harsh land, this.
Well, hopefully when more of the towers are built and we have a more fortified position along the coast, we'll be able to make it a little bit safer for everybody.
Yes, certainly that would be everyone's wish.
At which point the lieutenant looks at you, Weimar, and he says, I hear on the grapevine at Staffstone that you've been tapped for a command position.
I didn't realize they would have made it public yet, I suppose.
He says, well, one thing I can say about Commander Dixon is she's not like some of the commanders I've had previously. She generally believes that unless it's information of a confidential nature, she generally believes that keeping her men as well informed as possible is all to the good. Since how can you make the proper decisions if you don't have all of the facts at your command? And I say she mentioned that one of the people from New Zealand was being tapped for a command position at the tower, and she I don't mean to sound indelicate, but well, you're the only one of your number who has a wooden leg.
Yeah. That's the thing that gives me away to my new allies and everyone else as well. No offense taken.
Good. I've seen my fair share of people who've taken injuries in battle. I know such things don't cast any stain on a person's character or abilities. Who knows? We may be serving with you in the future, depending on how things develop with the new tower and such like.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, I just hope we can make this place a little bit safer for those. And he sort of gestures in the direction of the village, make it a bit safer for those who are less capable of defending themselves, shall we say?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There'll be no end of that, I presume. I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better, especially with the winter coming in.
No doubt. The night's always darkest before the dawn, as they say.
Very true. Well, hopefully you'll be able to tend to your comrades in the manner that they would have wanted to be treated, and well, Malcolm, do we want to rest up a bit before continuing?
Yeah, but not here. Can we buy wine here, John?
Yeah. It's probably not wine actually. It'll be like an ale.
That's fine. So I think what we should do is buy some ale and some food and some whatever else, and then go visit Ariana for a day or two.
That's fine. And
That's just sort of better.
As you're sort of pondering that, the lieutenant who's been talking to you, Weimer, says, Lieutenant Pearson, by the way, Abner Pearson.
I'll shake a hand.
Shake your hand.
Don't really know what I should be called, but the name's Weimar Longgrove.
Baron, right? Baron Longgrove. That's what we said.
I will have to say I've truly forgotten if I heard it.
He says, "Well, I suppose it'll be Commander Lone Grove if you accept the position as castellans of one of the towers."
Because of the tower, yes.
Well, next time we meet, I'll probably have to salute you, he says, chuckling.
I suppose we'll have to discuss the rules of decorum and all this thing, which is instrumental to defense.
I'll clap Weimer on the back of the shoulder and say, maybe we won't tell them that you cut your own leg off, and then I'll walk away.
I'll stare at the lieutenant dead in the eye.
He smiles and nods and like walks off, sort of chuckling to himself. And I think as you guys gather up your provisions, you're more than welcome to stay at your friend's house nearby, Ariana's house. Quite happy to settle in there. She's quite pleased to see, you bring in like beer and food that you've bought. I've seen cross off some gold for that based on the normal costs. That's fine. I know you've got enough money for that. And yeah, she welcomes you in. You settle in by the fire, and after the events of the previous couple of days, you get a welcome rest, and you all rest up for the day. So anyone who's down hit points can regain 1d3 hit points. And I think as you settle in with the crackling of Ariana's fire in the background, you're passing around this ale. She's heating some of it in the fire to get a bit of warmth in you. As candles and lanterns are lit as the night starts to fall. That is where we draw an end to the session. Thank you very much for playing, guys. I hope that was okay for you.
Yeah, thank you very much, John.
Yep.
No problem at all. Obviously, we'll sort out XP and we'll have a little chat about the game and whatever. But for now, I'm just going to thank my wonderful players again. And anyone who's watching this either now or in the future, hopefully we'll catch you for the next session. Take it easy.